And away we go. How's it going, everybody? Captain Poseidon? Pyro? What is going on? Hope everyone's feeling good on this Friday. Today I feel like painting some weapons. Well, I haven't been painting in a while. Bit of a hobby break. You know, sometimes breaks are good. They're warranted to allow the hobby fires time to renew. So we'll paint some, what is this? Illuminarium? Well, our counts as Illuminarium for our counts as Lorgar. He's shaping up, slowly but surely. You know what? It's probably worth taking a look at how the sample Illuminarium is painted. So how did the old heavy metal guys, or the official model, how is it visualized? So it's a silver core and gold phalanges all around. These gold spiky bits. Is that gold or brass? I'm gonna go with gold. I think it'll look better for my color scheme. Now in the 30k iteration, all the glowing runes are kind of orange or dark red. Obviously, I've committed to a green. So I'll carry that through on our weapon as well, because when I look at it, it does seem like there are some line work, some sigils. And that'll tie it into his armor. A cursed weapon for a cursed man. Something like that. Captain Poseidon says, I had a game of AOS Spearhead today, which was also my first full game of Warhammer. Oh, well, congratulations. Captain Poseidon, how was your first game of Spearhead? Personally, I think Spearhead is a fairly satisfying gameplay experience. It's quick, it's dynamic, it's got just enough options in your detachment toolkit, so to speak. And to keep things interesting. Though I haven't played the newer Spearhead, the Fire and Ash, I think it's called. Or Ash and Bone, right? Whichever. I only played the first Fire and Jade. Yeah, so the new one probably isn't called Fire and Ash, so that wouldn't make sense. It would be too repetitive. Pyro says, same here, however I feel like it's due to distractions, like checking tabs and stuff. Checking tabs. Not quite sure what you mean. I assume same here refers to hobby bricks. Well, I guess we should begin. So here's our Illuminarium. So everything's gonna need a metal base coat, at least both ends of the weapon. It'll be silver and golds from there. Though the brush on primer went on a little thin, especially on the pointy phalanges. So we're gonna have to do a coat of those first, I think. Captain Poseidon says, I tied at 11 points. Hey, a tie is it's pretty good. No one lost, but no one won either. Though I forgot one of my secondaries that give me +1 point. But again, my opponent also forgot his secondaries till the very last round, and we both forgot our faction rules. Okay, so it's a learning game. So it's a good first encounter by the sounds of it. So it's impossible to know who truly won. I had fun though. Hey! Then it was worth. Then it was worth. That's why That's why we do what we do, to have a good time. Okay, so let's got a little bit of brush on primer action first. I must protect the spiky bits. So crucial for the weapon silhouette. You know, by the looks of it, it seems like I already put some silver paint on this weapon. On the core. That spherical core. You know, for this Sunday, I have in the books a scheduled custom, how would I even term it? It'd be a custom version of Combat Patrol. So with quite a few house rules going in, just to see what we can get it to. Because I don't think Combat Patrol feels particularly good to play. It seems like a big old failure. But I think there's a potential play space there, a potential format that would be satisfying in the way Spearhead's satisfying. So it'll be an interesting experiment. And if it goes well, I'll probably make a little YouTube post about it. And if it goes really well, I'll probably do it again. Although I do want to give that new Salamander's detachment, I say new, it's not really new, the newest version of the Salamander's detachment a practical test run. It's probably worthwhile. Then at least I could say I've tried it. I'm sure it's a bit better. So the stratagem changes seem across the board better. The enhancement, losing Champion of Humanity, isn't that... It's probably one of the better enhancements you would have had in the detachment, but they want to push Pyroclasts and Flamers in that detachment, so I get it. Pyro says, do you plan to get the remaster of Dawn of War? Or are you waiting for Dawn of War 3 to come out in 2026? I probably won't get the remaster of Dawn of War, to be honest. RTSs are not my jam, necessarily. I like them, and I think they're fun to look at, the same way the tabletop is fun to look at. But I hit a pretty, I'll be honest with you guys, I hit a pretty hard skill ceiling, but pretty early on with RTSs. Generally, right? Like, I enjoyed StarCraft and StarCraft 2, the campaign and everything, but multiplayer, it's like, not something I can do, if I'm being honest. It would be good for a B-roll for videos, though I wonder if my computer could sustain a Dawn of War 3. I don't know. I feel like Space Marine 2 is the upper ceiling of my computer's gaming potential. Okay, we're gonna need some gold next, and I'll be using the good old Retributor. Good old Retributor mixed with our Vallejo metal color. I was looking over at Lorgar, 30k. Can we see his mace pommel? Can we see it? No, not really. I'll have to trust that it's also gold. Look at like black marble paint job they have here. That's pretty rad. Let's check other pictures or other stills. Well, whoops, excuse me. Thought I'd mute myself. My bad. Sometimes, you know, you just gotta belch. Let's tab back over. Pyro says, or I guess Captain Poseidon says, who's your favorite Star Wars character? Mine is General Grievous. Okay, General Grievous is a very cool character. I'll be honest, okay? Very cool. He's got 4 arms. Yeah, that means 4 lightsabers. And he's got that little bit of a before and after appeal with the Clone Wars animated series. But I don't know if he's my favorite. Aesthetically, I think Darth Maul obviously has a lot going for him. But favorite character? Is it too much of a Mary Sue pick to choose a Starkiller from the Force Unleashed series? I think Disney de-canoned that story, but I thought it was pretty neat. And that was the kind of secret apprentice I liked for Darth Vader. Wasn't too big of a fan of the secret apprentices in the Obi-Wan show because it kind of steps on Starkiller's toes. Pyro says, question, when it comes to sculpting, do I just go for it? Wanting to do Alpha Legion type scales and trim styles for Artificer armor in Horus Heresy. Yes and no. Planning and prototyping does help because just going for it without any guidelines is setting yourself up for failure. Especially if you don't know how to handle green stuff, because depending on the kind of finish you're after, you're better off working with it at different periods during the curing phases, like during the different, because it cures over time. So you kind of want to have some familiarity, because if it's too sticky, then it becomes a pain to get in there with your tools. There's definitely a sweet spot that is probably going to vary depending on the consistency of blue to yellow. Pyro, so I hope that answers your question. I would, if you're looking for... Oh, I don't have it on hand. I had a friend 3D print me a green stuff roller just for a scale pattern, for Alpha Legion scale purposes. For Alpha Legion scales, rather. And then doing that, you could just make sheets of them and then cut them to fit and wrap around leg plates or the different areas of, I don't know, gauntlets maybe? It's kind of small to do a gauntlet, though. Not a lot of surface area, but I think you get what I mean. Pyro says, Captain Poseidon, same here, considering timeline-wise. He said hello there to Kenobi first. I guess you're right. I guess you're right there, Pyro. What's the difference between a belch and a burp? A belch, well, I actually don't know. It's probably the same thing. The belch is probably the... Shit, there's a term for words that sound like... that describe how they sound, and I can't recall it offhand. But the belch is definitely that for burps. That was a terrible answer. Pyro says, I got green stuff and Milliput out with the 40k. Which one would be better? I don't have too much experience with Milliput. I've mixed it with green stuff for the Tyrannofex sculpting, because that was the most complex sculpting project I took on. And I was doing about a 50-50 mix. So it's like green stuff, that was probably 60-40 yellow to blue. And then I mixed that with, from what I can recall, an even amount of milliput that was mixed evenly between its two parts. Yeah, it's a lot of mixing going on. I also found, and I don't know if this is the type of milliput I was using, but it made my hands, or my fingers rather, very itchy. But the gloves I had, they weren't conducive to, like, working. They're too loose, too ill-fitting, so it just makes sculpting a drag. So I just had to deal with it. I don't know, maybe that's something to keep in mind when you are working with milliput, I guess. It can get itchy, at least the type I was using. Yeah, General Grievous is a cool character, guys, but like I like the concept of a bad guy, a villain, who collects lightsabers of Jedi. Like, that's got a good edge to it. Makes him very sinister, very imposing, right? But a lightsaber wielder who hunts Jedis that can't use the Force doesn't make any sense to me. I feel like it's such a handicap. Force is too OP, and unless you're a dark side wielder or a Force wielder, I can't really believe that you could contend with a Jedi. Maybe like a Padawan, right? They're like struggling to use the Force, but I feel like as soon as you add the Force into the mix, Grievous is just kind of screwed. I don't know if there's any deep lore that kind of accounts for that. If that's been addressed in, like, novels or whatever else for General Grievous, but seems like an issue, if you ask me. So I'm going to mix the silver and gold here to make our pale, more reasonable gold. You know, I'm sure GW sells a reasonable gold, but I only have a Retributor. And all of their other golds, I feel like, aren't base. All the lighter, paler golds they have aren't base paints. And so, they have bad coverage. See, look at this nice gold. Reasonable. Nice and reasonable. It does look like it's going on pretty thick. We'll have to see how it dries. The Vallejo metal color is an air paint, I believe, so it should thin out as the paint dries. Yeah, so we're gonna apply gold on all of these metal rings and then just carry it through. Depending how chatty we get today, maybe we'll have time to do the booklet as well. He carries a book on his offhand. Classic Lorgar. Well, what else would you bring to a battle? Your book of spells. Your book of evil. You know, I feel like when we paint the phalanges, we're going to have to focus quite a bit. I feel like it is inevitable I will ruin the metal sphere in the center. Might need 2 coats of this, honestly. Pyro says, isn't it canon that Mace Windu, Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Yoda are the real troublemakers to good old Grieve? Like, he has hunted Jedi well, cause only the ones mentioned are really trained to fight. Maybe. It's crazy, though. I don't know. Like, when you watch... And again, I don't know all the deep lore of Star Wars, okay? I'm a fan, and I like it, but I don't go too deep beyond the movies and a couple of the shows. But when I watch Order 66, and the implication is all of these different Jedi Knights or Jedi Masters are all over the galaxy on the different war fronts of the Clone Wars, leading their generals, right? Obi-Wan is General Kenobi, right? I would imagine all those other Jedis in the Order 66 compilation, right? I can't remember their names anymore. Mundi Plo Koon, is that his name? I can't remember. The Twi'lek one. She's green-skinned. What can I say? That's all I know. I would imagine they're all generals, and therefore, leading on the front lines, they ought to be decent fighters. I don't know. It's weird to me. And I guess, well, maybe Grievous isn't a robot, actually. He's got like an organic core, right? Now that I'm thinking about it. He's got like he's like a lizard inside or something, right? It's like a lizard in a robot suit, effectively. So maybe he can use the Force. I don't know. I feel like I'm making up I feel like I'm filling in plot holes, guys. That's how I feel. Pyro says, due to the time period of them being peacebringers, so they have zero combat knowledge and had to learn during the war. Maybe. Captain Poseidon says, at Pyro, he actually caused distress in the Jedi Order, which made them turn Padawans into knights too early, including Anakin, which is why he was able to kill even more untrained Jedi. Yeah, I think if he's collecting lightsabers from untrained Jedi, it makes a lot more sense. And in a way, that makes him a much more sinister figure, right? Now look how tiny this script is here. I feel like I'm going to clog up all this detail. Be forever lost. It's too much pressure. Oh, on the Hive Fleet Gengar Norn Emissary project, it's... I've definitely been procrastinating, so I won't deny that. But I think I've figured out the parts that I need. The discovery phase, the prototyping, the dry fitting is pretty much over. So I'm going to get those parts sourced and get some prints made. And then start building and recording footage. It should be a pretty epic build, I think, honestly. At least on par with the Tyrannofex. Should be pretty dope. And unlike the Tyrannofex, it's a conversion that feels much more appropriate for the army, in my opinion. The Tyrannofex, while cool, is definitely more of a high fleet Kronos, bio barrage type creature. Not all that spooky. And I like my high fleet Gengar to be spooky. What else is new in the Warhammer? In the Warhammer news cycle. Maybe I'll take a look at Warhammer community, see if there's any hot news from this week. Oh, we did record a Grimdark Therapy for the Outer Circles channel. I don't know if it's been published yet, which is something to look forward to if you haven't seen it already. Pyro says, at what the 40k? I hear ya. I still haven't finished my Leviathan Tyranid box set yet. Yep, that's, I don't think I ever will finish mine. Like, those Termagants, I just have no desire to build. How many are in there? 40? Like, that's crazy. I mean, I have 30 old ones, and I don't really like to run too swarm heavy. I did convert the Turvagon. But again, it's not really a very thematic unit for High Fleet Gengar, so I don't use it much these days. Not that they're bad, but I've started really skewing to playing the armies I own thematically, for better or for worse. It's definitely a gimp, though. You do feel the lack of, of tools against people who are taking units because they're pointed efficiently. I might check if this message is urgent. Now we're good. Captain Poseidon asks, what's the lore of High Fleet Gengar? I did do a thematic army showcase that I think presents the lore of them pretty well, but it's essentially an offshoot of Leviathan, or it's not an offshoot, what's the term? A splinter fleet. Yes, there's a splinter fleet of High Fleet Leviathan that perhaps branched off at the same time as Kronos, during that same sort of, I did a bit of headcanoning here, right? I imagined that splinter fleets would be tested relative to one another. And I think from that you could have similar splinter fleets be founded, so to speak, at a similar time. Because there is a thematic overlap with High Fleet Kronos. Because I would play Gengar as High Fleet Kronos in older editions, because they have that sweet fucking stratagem, okay? It's like the best strategy, one of the best stratagems in Tyranids, the Deepest Shadow. It's just so foreboding, and it like quintessentially represents the fear, the psychological warfare that the Tyranids could present if they lean into their spookier, more what's the word? Eldritch, almost, sort of themes that they sort of can dabble with. So High Fleet Gengar is characterized by liking to eat psychers, which is a cheeky nod to the Pokemon game, where ghost types likes to fight psychic types. And they prefer to use spookier units, such as lictors, infiltrating bugs, and the like. I mean, in 10th edition, there's a fair argument to say Vanguard Invaders would be really good for High Fleet Gengar, because they do lean into more the lictor infiltrating unit type, but the Synaptic Nexus detachment just has what is, to me, the spiritual successor to the High Fleet Kronos stratagem. So hopefully that answers your question about High Fleet Gengar lore, Captain Poseidon. Pyro says, I feel the need to do something about NIDs, like giving Gaunts and Termagants the ability to have Tyranid warriors, like how Primes can lead small armies. Yeah, I wish you could have warriors as leaders for Termagants and Hormagaunts. Just a lone warrior, just to serve as a little synapse node, really. Help lead the rabble. Seems Seems pretty thematic to me. Quite reasonable, really. I also have so many warriors, but I don't like to run them in big blocks. It doesn't feel very High Fleet Gengar. But, you know, if I could have a warrior leading a group of Hormigons, that's pretty cool. Now, mind you, he couldn't really keep up with them because the rules are such, but thematically, I like the idea. Like, you could certainly lead Termagants, because he could keep up with those guys, no problem. Alright, we're getting there. Harper says, let me be more clear. I want Tyranid warriors to be like sergeants, while the primes are like lieutenants. Make it a points upgrade. Oh, a points upgrade for the unit of Termagants. Yeah, that'd be a fairly clean way to do it. I always thought you could have had an alpha Termagant as well, right? With a head crest or something, and then he would have synapse. That'd be a cool flex for a custom High Fleet. See, that's the kind of like evolutionary point upgrades you want in Tyranids. That ability to customize the bioforms to your needs. Sort of like the 3rd edition Codex. I mean, you had a little bit of that in 8th edition, but or not 8th, 9th. But from what I can recall, you weren't able to spam it. Like, one model in your army could have that upgrade, which doesn't really communicate the character of a custom High Fleet. If that's the way you were leaning with those sorts of upgrades. I guess my favorite canon Star Wars character. So again, I think Starkiller was retconned. Or not retconned, but they uncannoned him, I think. Disney did that. So in the current canon, I think probably Cassian Andor is my favorite character. Definitely my favorite character post Disney. I think Andor is based, and the show is really good too, so that doesn't hurt. Or Luthen. Oh, Luthen's fun. Luthen's a really good character too. Dude, all the characters in that show are so good. Captain Poseidon says, I'm making my custom Maggotkin sub-faction. They come from Misthaven, a city in Ulgu that's made of multiple ships welded together. Interesting, like a ship graveyard. Or are they functional ships? Is it kind of a welded huge ghost ship fleet? I mean, I can believe it. It doesn't sound too out of the box. I feel like I don't have to suspend disbelief for it. Okay, I'm trying to see where some of these spikes begin and end. Particularly the ones that aren't mounted on these rails. It might be wise to give this whole thing a wash, then layer it back up. Classic GW painting method. It is a lot of extra processes, but I think a Primarch's weapon is probably deserving of such attention. Just trying to see under... Oh, that blue stuff is getting kind of weak. Captain Poseidon says, they see Nurgle as a way of ending all the suffering the petty crime and drug trade in Misthaven has caused to them and their families. While Misthaven is a canon city in AOS lore, the subfaction are just a chaos cult located in it. Oh, nice! Good use of the existing landscape, right? Especially if it's not the dominion of some other faction. I mean, I'm just assuming that. Yeah, my Stormcast are definitely themed after Diablo Crusaders. So I don't know if there's any, like, nice way to slot them in. And I think Stormcast all come from the same realm, right? Is it Azir? I'm rough on the AOS lore. They're all from Sigmar's domain. I don't believe they get to have different cities in different realms. If that's an option, I would definitely characterize them in that way. Put them in a grim, dark fantasy kind of setting. Leave this aside, and I'm going to give this whole thing a wash of Null Oil, and hopefully we don't darken it too much, though I'm sure we're going to lose some readability. Just want a little bit of silver. Look at this. Silvered myself. Terrible. Captain Poseidon says, all Stormcast have their souls broken and reforged in Azir, but they are then dispatched into different realms. Most Stormcast chambers have a city of Sigmar they're stationed over as protectors. Oh, okay, look, I can play with that. Thanks for the download, Captain Poseidon. I was greatly enjoying painting the Stormcast, but I really should finish the High Fleet Gengar Norn Emissary. Too many projects on the go, right? I'm saying this and I'm holding another project, which is also on the go. There's a little bit of overspill I wanted to clean up. And just checking, just gotta check for areas that I sort of missed. I want a decent finish before the wash goes on. A fairly defined layer of this material. Wonder if it's worth diluting the wash too. It might be. Okay, well look, already the mace is looking way better. Surprise, surprise, painting your models makes them look good. Now, I don't think I will be using any lamine medium for this. I think I want to maximize the definition a little bit. We'll see if it's a terrible mistake. Weapon handle. Weapon handle. So, looking at the source art, Lorgar's weapon is definitely has some sort of black marble sort of effect. Now, I don't like that for my weapon. And it's got a red handle, a red weapon wrap. I don't like that either. See, obviously, from a color theory point of view, they've used red as the accent color because his armor is gray. And my armor is red with the 40k word bearer scheme. So, I do not want to make the handle red because it wouldn't read well. So what are we working with? Maybe we go with an off dark blue, like with this cape, or the inside of the cape. Something to contrast but not draw too much attention, because the weapon's focal point should be the gold and the glowing green glyphs that it will have. So I've convinced myself it'll be blue. Tramari, how's it going? How are you? And you're asking, how's this project going? Well, it's coming along bit by bit. Working on some weapons. Well, we'll see if we do the book today. Working on the mace, which is slowly getting paint applied. Not bad. We're going to wash it shortly, but first I want to paint this weapon wrap. We got some blue on the palette. I think it's alive. Alive enough to work with anyways. So we'll apply it. Hopefully it's not too egregious. Well, you know what? Even if it is, we're going to give this an all-over wash. Should be fine. We should be able to handle a bit of saturation at this stage. Yeah, we're going to do a blue. There's two different wrap textures. I think it's I don't think it would make much sense to paint them the same, because they look like two distinct materials. So I think we're going to make the looser wrap where his hand is gray. And we'll keep this one a royal blue sort of color, like the inside of his cape. Jamari says, I'm curious if there's a color more associated with chaos other than red is for bad guys. Yeah, I blame Star Wars for that. Red's a pretty cool color. It's a great color. But for whatever reason, I think it's the sheer impact of Star Wars. Star Wars' cultural impact. Red is the color of evil. Well, not necessarily. Look, devils are red, right? Fire and brimstone, all of that. So, maybe not. It's maybe not entirely Star Wars' fault. Is there a better color for chaos other than red? I mean, every color is going to have a problem. It's going to have that same argument where it's like, oh, green's a perfectly good color, and then there's Nurgle. Blue, and then there's Zinch, and so on and so on. You know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, I think red might be the best color. Unfortunately, so for red fans, for fans of reds, that red might be the best color for evil. Hate to say it. If I had to pick one, it's probably the right choice. Okay, what gray to use? I don't think I have anything going on the palette, so let's grab whatever his cloth tabard color is. It's like a London gray, maybe? I'll give the London gray a whirl. Best not to overthink it. You can always paint. You can always put more paint on top. I finally got around to seeing that new Superman movie, and I thought it was pretty neat. Overall, I think a more enjoyable watch than Man of Steel, but I like, there's a certain appeal to Henry Cavill as Superman. But overall, I think this new movie has a much better captures the heart, the spirit of Superman. It's probably a popular opinion. You know what? I think the gray is the right choice. Could have gone with the parchment color too. It's fairly neutral. I wonder if the Iron Hands know that Lorgar is wielding a weapon made by their Primarch. That's gotta ruffle some feathers, right? It's gotta trigger them a little bit. If they know. Tramari says, believe it or not, fire and brimstone refer to natural sulfur that burns blue. So I think perhaps some sulfur-based fire should be ghostly blue like the real thing. That'd be great contrast. That is a fun fact, and I will keep that in mind going forward, Tramari. Yeah. I still stand by what I said. I think red's probably the best color for evil. If you had to pick one. Alright, I think we're ready for some Null Oil. We'll see if that just ruins everything I just did. Where's my safety stand? I don't like accidents. I've spilt enough washes. And the plan here is to go fairly heavy. I'm gonna layer back up, so if it gets too dark, it should be fine. Usually with the wash, there's enough working time to smooth over any heavy poolage. I mean, the darker you go, the better the glowing green will read as well. So that is something to consider for the OSL type effects. Jeez, part of me wishes I just glued this arm on and I'd have a much easier time painting it. I don't think blue tack is what I should be using with this handle. I probably want something with a bit more rigidity. Oh, see, there it is. Let's try it again. Are any of these areas too heavily pooled up? Sort of screwed up in how this is positioned because it's going to be sort of like this in its orientation, and so I don't want the wash to dry in the opposite position. So now I'm just stuck holding this forever. Primarch says use Play-Doh. Oh yeah, well, Play-Doh certainly gets tough. Ghostly blue flames on a word bearer would be interesting. I'll have to try it out when I get painting again, says Tramari. At least for their flamer units, right? That's the way to go. I've committed to green, like a warp flame kind of color. In my head, that's what I imagine warp flame would look like. But you can do any color for your weapon effects. wonder if I can, like, extract this and just leave it in a bottle cap. Maybe paint something else in the interim. Oh, that should be safe-ish. Alright. Next, we got a little booklet. It's definitely a cool accessory. What color do we make the booklet? That's the real question. Maybe we make it red because of evil. It does have some runes, so we are going to make it glow. And there's some metallic details on there, so we can do a red and gold. Gotta be a dark red, though. Let's try it out. Let's give it a whirl. You could make it the armor color, but I don't really want to do that. So we'll do corn red, mix it with some black for our value differential. And we will assess. We will assess if it's a good idea or a terrible one. Okay, so this is corn red with a bit of black mixed in it, so this will be our first layer. And when it comes to the gradients, I'll have to consider how it's positioned on the model. So I might do a bit of a dry fit once this paint is dried. And just applying Steel Legion over these pages. I'm going to shift this to a bone color eventually. But I think Steel Legion is a great color for any beige. Even for yellows, it's a good base color, really. Alright, while it dries, let's take a look at that Warhammer community. Let's see what's going on. Let us see. This is new, right? I think it's a little refresh. Salamanders, Forge and Flame, One Painter's Journey with the Salamanders. See, look, this framing is very wholesome. Right? Oh, One Painter's Journey with the Salamanders. But I can't help but feel, this is my sour, point of view, embittered, I guess. I can't help but feel that this is only here now because Salamanders are for sale. Right? Because Volcanistan and the Combat Patrol came out recently. And that's why this is here on the community page. It's not because they care about this one painter's work. Mike is one of the custodians of the Warhammer Archive. Okay, so he's a studio insider. And they're highlighting his work. Well, cool for that guy, right? Very cool for that employee. if I am assuming what that means correctly. That's a neat conversion. I mean, personally, I like when salamanders aren't leaning into the dragons and all that. Like anything beyond a scale cloak, I feel gets a bit space wolfy. But for a custom character, it's all right. Yeah, these are fine. Like, if this came out in the middle of last year, and it was just some painter on Instagram or Facebook or whatever, I'd be like, big brownie points on the Warhammer community for spotlighting something. That just seems like a wholesome community spotlight. Oh, I saw dragon heads on the flamers? That's interesting. Or on the assault cannons. What are these? I wonder if that's a lizard man kit or something. Oh, nice dreads. In the new year, I'll be taking my salamanders to a grand tournament, just like I did last year. Okay. That's cool. Well, look, at least I didn't plug what's for sale. You can buy these now. Use Salamander's Combat Patrol. Could be worse, I guess. What else do we got? Legions of the Mechanicum. 4 fancy Forge World forces. Old World Almanac. Chronicles of the Blood Offering. Oh, that's these 4. Let's close these. Oh, Legions Imperialis. Look, there's an appeal to this format of game, just to have larger armies on the table without making it impractical, like Games of Apocalypse of 40k. I just don't know if Horus Heresy was the thing to do it with. Oh yeah, this guy. That's a cool model. I do like him. Everything you need to know. Oh, I like this art. Combat Patrol, data sheets, painting, lore. Jeez. Oh, there's our guy. I think I read somewhere that his lore is pretty, like, over the top. Like, he just goes around killing Norn emissaries all day, like it's no big deal. I don't love that. See, the cool part about Votann is because they have these AI constructs, it would feel pretty cool to have this guy be an Ironkin, and he's able to use that to take on dangerous Tyranid foes with consequence. But he skirts around it because he's an Ironkin, right? He can commit himself at great risk, which sometimes leads to him dying, and then they recover him and put him in a new body. That would be a more tasteful way to have a Norn Slayer, in my opinion. But I think even that conceptually, it just makes the Tyranid seem super weak. Super weak. Shamari says the art for the Votan look nice. Yeah, I think. I don't hate the Votan's aesthetic. Space boogies are okay. I like this chunker. I don't like this aesthetic. This Hoover. This Hoover aesthetic. I think if I had a box of Votan, I think I would paint them to look like penguins and greatly enjoy that. Just orange shoes, black and white color scheme, maybe like orange visors. I think that would look really good. You call them the Penglings, the Pengling League. And you spell it the way they spell their other leagues, with those dashes. The Pengling Alliance, that's what you'd call them. Alright, is my mace dried up yet, or what? I think so. Oh, not really. Getting there. Needs a bit more time, though. Well, maybe we can reduce some of that pooling, though. It's a bit heavy over here. Let's sop some of that up. Okay. Everywhere else seems okay. Just the deepest of recesses left. Yeah, I mean, on the Votan aesthetics, like the weapons look so good. It's just their weapon aesthetic is right in line with my sensibilities, or with my aesthetic preferences. Very desirable. Like the plasma axes, very cool. Their big thunderhammers, also very cool. And just the chunk on their weapons overall just feels nice. I don't think they show any of the weapons in detail on this article. Like, if we look at this image, and if we enhance, how far can I enhance? Right, like this is like, it's kind of like a stereotypical sci-fi weapon, but I dig it. I don't think that's a bad thing. Yeah, conversion beamers are fine, but yeah, like these rail rifles or rail cannons, they look so rad. I don't love the runic armor, but yeah, I don't love the Terminator unit they have, but these guys have grown on me. It might just be because of my Pengling idea. Very well could be just that. Okay, the book is dry enough to dry fit. So if we take our Lorgar, so what are we working with? So it's posed sort of like this, which means we want the gradient probably in this direction. So light on this edge, dark. And on this side, I don't think it matters. So just pick a direction. Maybe this corner in. You're not going to see it too much because it's down facing. Okay, we'll play with that. I don't know if this blue stuff is going to peel the paint either, but we'll see. Tramari says, narratively, I think the Votan can be big players in the galaxy. If they have an artifact of Vulcan, the Salamanders may have to go to war with them. I know the Mechanicus/Imperium will do to having. Yeah, I think the Salamanders will. Lore would dictate they have to. Vulcan Histan would decree it as necessary. How else will you summon your dad from the ether? Tramari's message continues. Oh, because of them having AI/Ironkin. Yep, that is what they're called, I believe. Also, the upgrade Imperial Tech that the Mechanicus jealously guards. Yeah. Well, 40k Mechanicus should be very jealous of Votan because they have Steeljacks and Iron and 30k. Or I might have none of their 30k units, so yeah, I'd be jealous for sure. Why can't we have our cool robots? Instead, we have the derpy Castellan robot, which I'm not saying should go away, but if any faction should have their Horus Heresy units, it probably should be the Mechanicum. Alright, so look, got some gradient happening. We'll push it a bit higher. Give it a little bit of time to dry, though. Build up that medium gradient on this side. And go in from this corner. This corner towards the fingers. And on the spine, I think right down the middle makes the most sense. You gotta push that red more. I'll probably come in with the pure red for edge highlighting, and it might yield a Dark Angel's armor sort of aesthetic. let it dry a little bit. We'll move over to Lorgar. I did some green stuffing to fix a damaged component from a drop, sadly. I knocked this guy over, and he fell, and I damaged the wing here, so I had to green stuff a little bit of a point, because it would drive me crazy otherwise. So, we gotta paint that blue, and then at a later date, when I circle back to these demonic avatars, we'll make it look good. Sucks to suck, but you know, sometimes you do stupid things and you win stupid prizes. Some whites for... I have an off-white on the palette. Will this work? Not really. Too watery. It's too old, unfortunately. But mix it with some yellow. I mean, with enough coats, it'll work, but we're not really supposed to be doing this today. Wasn't really part of the scheduled components to hit. I constantly do stupid things, says Tramari. Ain't depression a bitch? Definitely. Your worst enemy, for sure. Yeah, in my case, I left the model on my desk like this, because I thought it'd be cool to look at. And then while reaching for something else, I knocked it over, which wouldn't happen if it was just off of the painting handle. And so never again will I just leave a model sitting like this to admire. Oh yeah, I also have this guy on the desk. I did touch up him a little bit. I do think painting this style skull shoulder pad as armor color is way better aesthetically for every scheme, rather than painting it to look like skulls. It creates like an organic, warped effect of the armor, right? Like the armor has slowly warped over time and deformed, which I think is just way better, and it sits better visually also, rather than having this like brightly skull-colored shoulder pad, which feels a bit jarring for your army scheme. Because that shoulder pad was never a favorite of mine, because I'd always see it in the bone color. But for a Plague Marine, I think it looks good in the, Death Guard green color. Okay, let's take a look at our mace. I think we are ready. Interesting. Okay, I'm gonna try. We're gonna try doing the glowing runes first, and then do all of our layers afterwards. That way we have that. My reasoning is doing it in that order will allow me to build up the layers, knowing what the readability of the runes looks like, rather than building up the layers too much. Maybe it becomes too bright and the runes don't read as well. I think that approach makes the most sense. Whoops. Okay, so for the runes, we'll need some white ink. An old brush with a decent point. Just kind of a tough ask, honestly. Who has an old brush with a decent point? I think that'll do. And some flow improver. Tramari asks, is there a color that's close to Shields Green in the GW or other paint ranges? I ask because I think it was the first toxic green humanity made. That is perfect for Nurgle. Shields Green. I don't even know what that is. Let me do some quick Google foo. Shields Green. Shields Green. Okay. It's like a cross between Moot and Lothern Forest in GW paints. That's off the top of my head. FYI. I don't keep up with GW's paint ranges. I don't know if they've added new colors in recent times. Jeez, I hate using their web store. It says they're 55. 55 greens. Crazy. Okay, let me unenhance. Oh, Tramar says, thanks, bud. No problem. I don't trust these, though. That's a problem. Okay, so what you point to looks similar to Niblet green, but it is a dry brush color, for what it's worth, right? If I look at Shields, assuming that this is your Shields that you're talking about, fairly close, just eyeballing it. Strachan? Lothern? Somewhere in between Lothern and Strachan? This is not Elysian, I'll tell you for free, so maybe we can't trust any of these. Because I like Elysian green. It's one of the colors I use with my Firekeepers, and do I have it here? No, I don't. No, you know what? Actually, maybe I misspoke. I was thinking of it Nurgling green. Good thing I double checked. Didn't want to misinform. Show more? Oh, jeez. Yeah, somewhere in between Lothern and Strachan. Maybe Strachan's the closest out of the pot. And that's a nice color, Auric Flesh. Really nice, actually. We're gonna have to circle back to the book while this dries. That's okay. I don't mind working on... I don't mind having the opportunity, rather, to work on the book. And we really don't need too much of this. But it's definitely like a bit of mixing potions energy here. Few drops of this. Oh god. few drops of the old flow improver and LCC splash. Is this like runny enough? Yeah, I guess so. I don't get too runny. These sigils are fairly small. Okay, do or die time. Do or die time. Let's see what we got. Is that enough flow? Well, probably not. That's safe to say. Can I absorb all the excess or what? Okay, that's more reasonable. Maybe we can work with this. Is that even readable for you guys? Probably not. I have to trust that what I see in OBS is what you guys see. But I'm doubtful when it comes to these finer details. Yeah, then we have these stripes. I think we actually need more flow improver. I think I underestimated the amount I needed. But look, it's always better to underestimate than overestimate. I have to circle back and pull from that. Because I think it's a bit overblown. I guess the only plus about working at full improver is that you have more working time. So it's very difficult application, but just it's like a very forgiving fill in the lines sort of deal. Kind of looks like shit around here. Oh well. We'll have to deal with it. Definitely not what you want. Okay, that's way too much. You know what? Benefit of hindsight, I'm really happy I darkened everything with Null Oil first. That's certainly helping the white pop. Oh boy, it's a bit thick on this line. Try and pull from that relatively quickly. Such a, dare I say, a stressful procedure. Okay, so we have a little bit of these lines going into this spike. Ugh, like look how ugly this side is, and how nice this side is. Go figure, the first one's amateur hour. Are those all the lines on the sphere? I think it, oh no, we have some on the underside. Okay, I think those are all the sigils and glowing elements. It's really gonna grind my gears if it turns out I missed one. Tramari says, I need to nap after the gym. Sorry for leaving. Hey, no apologies. Thanks for turning out, Tramari. Appreciate the company. You have a good one, Shamari. And as per your recommendation, yeah, I will definitely be neatening it up. Though I will have to darken this a little bit with some, oh god, some black primer. Maybe a bit more. Because it was a fairly, it was close, a color close to gunmetal, and it was darkened a bit more after that with the wash. So, thinking this might be close to what we're working with. That's a bit better. Just neaten it up a little bit more. Okay, we're gonna let this dry. Actually, we can keep working on this. We can keep working on this component because there's quite a few other materials to develop. So we're going to stick his fist into the blue stuff like that, and I want to start developing the wraps. So start layering up with that London gray. And I'm probably gonna mix in some of this nondescript off-white mix I have remaining on my wet palette, just to add the brighter tones to this material. And that should probably be sufficient, I think. We'll just leave it pure wash on the bottom. I'll just take some of this blue. I think it's McCrag blue. Funnily enough, we'll use McCrag blue. I wonder if McCrag blue is just too saturated of a color. I think we're okay, because it is McCrag blue mixed with a bit of some sort of army painter blue. So it should dry a bit darker than it's going on. Oh yeah, you guys couldn't see any of that. Shit. Okay, I'm gonna push it a bit more. Let's try and mix a pale blue and see where that lands. Just sort of edge highlighting. Just to create a bit of definition. Yeah, it looks pretty good, I think. Gotta water that down a bit more, though. Mix a bit of black with that McCrag blue base and just hit the ends because some gold is showing through and I don't love that. I want a clean division in those two materials. There we go. Yeah, reasonable. Okay, I'm gonna do the same with the gray components. Do I have enough off-white? Not really. This is about as bright as I can make it with what I have on the palette. I don't think it's potent enough. It's too thin. We'll have to use some of our sky gray. Okay, so has enough time passed for this ink to dry? I think the answer is yes. So we'll give it the Hex Wraith treatment and see where we're at. Sort of that moment of truth whenever you apply this. Because you never know. Looking at the time, probably will hang around for another 15 minutes or so, which is just enough time to finish off the majority of these weapons. So let's start with the part that was overblown, this side. Maybe we can fight that overblown appearance with a heavier application of this contrast. That's what I'm wondering. Maybe there's something to it. Okay, well, you have to be brave with these sorts of processes. Maybe it's cope, but I'd like to believe it'll dry a little bit more tasteful than how it's going on. And sort of like with washes, you want to be mindful of pooling. Okay, well, I think it's reading fairly well. At least those two parts. Oh my God's twin, welcome to the stream. What did you miss? It's been a pretty quiet stream, honestly. Chatting about, what did we chat about? A little bit of Star Wars talk. A little bit of paint Q&A. Painting process Q&A, green stuff Q&A. And just chipping away at these weapons. The mace of this Lorgar and the book. Jesus Christ, this music is just kind of painful. I'm gonna fast forward a bit to something more chill. And then we'll continue applying the Hex Wraith. Really, this is kind of the most interesting process of the Word Bearer's scheme. Or, I guess, my Word Bearer's scheme. I really do feel like GW should have characterized them similarly. Star Wars? What kind of Star Wars stuff? Just questions about favorite characters. And people in chat. I think Pyro was talking about the lore around Grievous. General Grievous. The general with the most grievances. So after the green contrast goes on, because it is a weapon of a Primarch, there is an argument to highlight and bump up the values of various areas of these glyphs. So that is something to consider. Beyond that, the weapon's definitely table ready. But, you know, you should give it some extra TLC with regards to defining the sharp edges, edge highlighting, that sort of thing. I kind of want to push the readability. I wonder if I can simply take the ink and mix in some Hex Wraith and go from there. So the ink is still alive. Well, you know what, barely. It's kind of curdling, really. Oh my God, someone says Captain Rex and Commander Thorn. Captain Rex from Clone Wars is who I assume you're referencing. That character I know, and it's pretty based. Commander Thorn, I'm not familiar with. And yeah, Grievous is definitely a menace. So much so, they had to send Obi-Wan after him. Which I think tells you everything you need to know. So now the question is, are these runes too small? They might be too small for further definition, which is kind of a shame. I mean, in the lines, I could dot the intersections. That's not too bad. Yeah, we're like hurting for flow improver here. Let's try that. We're experimenting. We're getting crazy. You know what? This isn't a terrible consistency. Just subtle enough. I think I can work with this. Great. Good news, everyone. Oh my God's twin says Commander Thorn was also a clone who died in the most badass way possible and was around before the Coruscant Guard became hated. I didn't know, I didn't even know that was a thing, if I'm being honest. I'm not too deep on the Star Wars lore. I mean, I like Star Wars. But as I was mentioning earlier in the stream, my lore knowledge goes about as deep as the shows and, well, not all the shows, the movies and some of the shows I've seen. Look, this consistency is doing all the work. It is win. There's the rule. When in doubt, add more flow improver. Seems like I missed a spot. How embarrassing. Actually, I don't know if that's a subtle bit of definite. Like, is it just a very subtle detail in the cast? Can I just trace it and see? That might have been a mistake. That might have been a terrible choice. Okay, once it dries, I'm gonna hex wraith over it. Well, it's certainly table ready. I've watched a good bit of Star Wars. Aside from the new stuff, it just doesn't feel right anymore, with a few exceptions. Yeah. That's the general lay of the land, it seems. Unfortunately. Unfortunately. I really like Andor. That's probably the peak Star Wars content post-Disney. I'd say so anyways. Omegon's twin asks thoughts on new Salamander's detachment. Well, I do have some thoughts. I think a step in the right direction, but not enough changes, unfortunately. Unfortunately, I think the detachment rules should have been improved. I think various stratagems should have been improved, such as Crucible of Battle. Especially Crucible of Battle. The new stratagems that were replaced, I think, are better, for the most part. I think the enhancement replacement between Champion of Humanity and... I can't remember what the new one's called. It affects torrent weapons. I think you get +1 attack. Is more of a side grade. It's a good enhancement traded for a good enhancement. But the detachment rule has always been a disappointing factor for the Salamander's detachment for me. It really should be +1 strength in melee as well. I can't believe it's only, like... Not that I can't believe it. I totally can believe it. Because I didn't expect GW to do anything. But, yeah, to put yourself up into close range to get +1 strength, that's what the detachment is selling you on. And it's a fairly mid perk for putting yourself in danger zone. And then you don't really have any clapback for fighting. Unfortunately. Well, look, we finished... Not finished, but we got a weapon looking decent. I'm gonna stick this on his arm. And we'll probably just do a little bit of rough edge highlighting on the booklet. And then we'll call it a day. I'm gonna use some pure red, just because I think it pops really well. And I don't hate the idea of a potent edge highlight for an evil booklet. An evil tome. Right, you're getting like a Dark Angels level of contrast. Well, an heavy metal. A heavy metal Dark Angels armor contrast. So I think it'll be a good aesthetic. It'll certainly help the book. It'll give the book a different sort of materiality compared to the rest of the armor. Omegon's twin asks, do you think the other Codex compliant chapters will be getting something similar? If I had to hedge my bets, most probably. Why wouldn't they, modify a few things, shake up the perception of some of these less desirable detachments? Right? Because as far as I can gauge with the competitive side of things, it seems to me the only two that people really play are Gladius and Iron Hands. So I think it's quite likely all the others will get some mix-ups. The most hurting detachments, in my opinion, were Salamanders and Imperial Fists. So I'll be curious to see what the Imperial Fists get. I mean, I'm always curious about Raven Guard, because I am a Raven Guard fanboy, but I'm not a fanboy. I don't even collect Raven Guard, so it feels a bit disingenuous to frame it that way. But I have something of a crush on Raven Guard, I'll put it that way. So we'll see if they get anything. I'm surprised, though. More curious to see what the Chapter Master will do. The new Chapter Master. What a lore shakeup. I mean, it doesn't have huge implications, but it is something of a shakeup for Raven Guard fans. Alright, this book is... it's okay. It needs more definition, for sure. For sure. Can I do anything with these ridges? Give them a little something. Evil novel. Indeed. Imperial Fist could definitely use it. White Scars are kind of okay. Raven Guard's actually pretty good, I think. Yeah, I agree. I think Raven Guard's pretty good. I think White Scars are fine. The thing that hurts White Scars' attachment the most is just the lack of cavalry or mounted units in general. But they're getting a new character, so that helps a little bit, but you really want another mounted unit. I think maybe if they add like a fly keyword or flying vehicle keyword to some strats just to open things up for land speeders, that might open things up in a semi-flavorful way. But it's not hurting the way Salamanders and Imperial Fists are, in my opinion. And Iron Warriors is sort of... yeah, Iron Hands probably is what you mean. Yep, I agree. I am a caveman. Shrike Simp, he's such a Chad, and despite being a Templar's player, I think he could beat Sigismund. Because hear me out. Okay, I'm listening. I'm listening. I do think I am also a caveman Shrike Simp. I think he's a super cool character. Super cool. Very, very much tempted to have an Iron or a Raven Wing army. I mean, Iron Hands are cool too, though, don't get me wrong. I like the Shattered Legions, what can I say? Alright, so this is basically where this guy is finishing off. Pretty good, you know, book's getting definition. Gotta add some trim to those those details on the book, though. I think the edge highlighting adds a little bit. Probably need to do a secondary layer of edge highlighting. The mace, way better for the work of today's stream. He's sitting fairly pretty, this guy. Now that his weapons are... Well, the mace was kind of a sore spot on all of the previous photos and reels I've taken of him, so that's pretty sweet. Looking sharper for it. Okay, let's hear you out, Omegon's twin. The weird disappearing mind thing is really hard to deal with, and Sigismund is not used to anything like that. There's also no great way to deal with it. Yeah, it's your paladin, your crusader archetype versus your assassin archetype, and subversion generally trumps people who play fair, generally speaking. So I think I get what you're saying. But in any case, guys, or Omegon's twin, whoever else is watching, or anyone in the VODs, we are wrapping up this stream. Lorgar's looking decent, and it is Friday night, so things need doing. Oh, Warp Forge dropping in right at the end of the stream. I was just about to make an exit, funnily enough. How is it going with you, Warp Forge? I was painting some weapons on the Artel counts as Lorgar. He's slowly coming together. Slowly but surely. The weapon that counts as Luminarium, I think, is looking pretty good. I particularly like the bright blue sections in between the weapon wraps. Subtle, but I think it makes a nice little impact. Anyways, guys, I must bid you adieu. Enjoy your weekend, everybody. Where's my wall of honor? Thanks to everyone who tuned in. And big thanks to patrons and channel members as always.